There we go. Take it away, sir.
Okay, thank you, Louis. So yeah, gentlemen, please have a seat. Just for introduction, I would like to mention that Tallinn Sustainable Energy and Climate Action Plan for 2030 predicts up to 50,000 electric vehicles in Tallinn. That means that 30% of all vehicles will be electric within just 10 years. Estonia is one of the countries that allowed autonomous vehicles on the street. It's truly exciting to live here in Estonia right now when these technological wonders are happening. And according to the long-term strategy of European Union, we plan to reach climate neutrality by 2050. At the same time, world's hunger for energy is increasing. People do not wish to consume less. They want to live more comfortable lives. So smarter systems and cleaner fuels are the way. So therefore, let's start the panel. We have amazing people to discuss these topics here today, and I hope we will disagree on some topics here. But let's start. Let's start off with Jakob. Perhaps you can introduce yourself within 30 seconds. Tell us, what do you do, basically? It's really short.
Of course, you saw the presentation. I'm the area manager for Finland and Baltics at Maas Global. My task is actually to run the service that we currently have in Helsinki and expand it to other cities through this or within this area, acquiring new partners and, of course, customers.
Great, thank you very much. Mr. Margus Vaht.
Thank you, Martin. Hello, everybody. I'm from Eesti Energia. We are doing strategic projects in my unit, but why I'm here actually is for two reasons. Number one is, of course, to help renewables online. How it's connected with e-mobility, we will talk. And number two, to make e-mobility cheaper, because that's the main obstacle.
Thank you very much. Mr. Margus Vihman from Port of Tallinn.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Margus Vihman, coming from Port of Tallinn. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer of Port of Tallinn. We're the biggest gateway to Estonia by sea. We service 10.5 million people annually and 1.8 million vehicles. And our vision is to become the most innovative port on the shores of Baltic Sea. This also, of course, is through the sustainability and reducing CO2 emissions.
Awesome. So just a second question over here to Mr. Vihman here. If I am a regular citizen, I do not want to sacrifice my comfort of living, but at the same time I want to be environmentally friendly. Then, Mr. Vihman, why should I care about what you do?
If you are an ordinary person in Estonia, you probably travel 2 or 3 times annually to Helsinki, or at least to Finland, or to Sweden. So if you don't want to fly, which is not very economically friendly, then probably you would take a boat, which means that you are very interested in what we do and how environmental friendly we are. Secondly, you mentioned that you don't want to lower your level of life. So most probably you are interested in economy of Estonia, and we bring a lot of tourists in. And when we do that, we understand that we have to preserve the nature, because otherwise, we won't have any tourists coming here. Plus the history, of course. So the old town and whatever we have in Estonia for the history, we want that to be preserved and do it sustainably.
Thank you for this short answer. Mr. Vaht, would you have a similar answer? Why should I care about what...
My name is Vils.
Vils, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. So, yeah, really quickly, like, why is it important what you do?
I think number one is of course the environment, because I actually listened a couple of weeks ago the chief of International Energy Agency, and he said that the cars in Estonia, they are 15 years old, means that they have very high emissions. And what our aim is to make electric cars to come online shorter. Of course, as an energy company, we want to sell electricity. But how we can help that? We can help that by using smart charging. And this would enable these electric cars, which pollute much less, to come online faster.
All right, that makes sense. Jarkko?
Same question.
Same question. Why should we care about what you do?
Well, we are trying to build a package towards the consumers that would actually make it possible for them to get rid of their cars, which in total means that then they would actually start to think about other more sustainable ways of mobility. And so far as we understand that, like I said, if the car is over there in the front yard, you're more keen on using it than every single time when you are going somewhere. It's so easy and convenient to just hop in the car and go wherever you're going. But if it's not there, then you start to think about the other modes of transportation. But we also know that that is not going to be easy. We know that people will have to commute to their office. They might have different modes, different needs when they are traveling. For example, on business, they might use a taxi occasionally. And sometimes we are actually said that we, as a company, are anti-cars, which isn't exactly true, because we still know that people are going to need to go to their summer or winter cottage, for example. At the moment, it's not possible unless you have a car. But the question is that, should you really own it? And we say that no. When you need the car, then you might rent it. And also, like you said, rental cars are actually pretty new and they might be electric. So let's use rental cars that are electric. And that's a really sustainable way of getting where you're going.
So a really important question, I guess, from all of you, from all of us, is that, so is electric vehicles the future? Because Mr. Gunter Pauli said that he does not believe in electric vehicles. So can you argue with that?
In the short term, I would say yes. Currently, of course, there are alternative modes of energy, like hydrogen, but currently there's no real network to actually distribute it. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg problem. Currently, the electricity on a short notice, I would say that it seems to be that way. Please disagree if you think the otherwise.
Yeah, I think there are three main obstacles of why there are so little electric cars today. Number one is, of course, the cost. Number two is customer choice. There are very few models available. And number three is range. And if you look at those three obstacles more closely, then range, not the problem anymore, really. Even with mid-class cars, if you take Nissan Leaf, Hyundai Kona, they already drive 300 kilometers or more, which is enough. Number two, choice of models. Not so much a problem in next or the year after that. Volkswagen said, how many, 25 or 30 new electric models. And as what comes to cost, today electric cars are already economic choice, not a lifestyle choice for people who drive 50,000 or more. Very few of those are mainly taxis. But analysis says that after 2, 3, 4 years, it will become an economic choice for every one of us to buy electric car because 1 kilometer costs less. And personally, I would say these cars are fun to drive. They're faster.
That is true. That is true. Mr. Wichmann, will the ships be electric?
To be honest, we don't know yet, but we have the first hybrid ships coming now, and Port of Tallinn also takes care of the transportation between the two big islands in Estonia and the mainland, and we are actually installing on one of these ferries batteries. Batteries are not very popular today here, but at the moment still we can reduce the CO2 emission dramatically on that because we don't have to run two engines at the same time anymore. For the security reasons, there are 4 engines actually in a ship and you have to run at least 2 of them at the same time because if something happens and you need to react quickly, you have to have the full power. Now what we can do is that we will run only one engine and the other one is relying on the batteries. So when you need to do some sudden move or you go off from the port or you moor the ship back into the port, then you use the batteries. Otherwise, you only have one engine running.
So yeah, so that means that ships are actually not moving into electric, but it's just hybrid.
Not yet. At the same time, we are also investing a lot into the onshore power. We're opening 5 quays in Old Town Port next spring, where you can use the onshore power. This means that if the ship is standing still in the port, it doesn't have to run the engines to produce power, and you can connect into the electric grid of Estonia.
Awesome. So all of you gentlemen have been bringing out very good points, like why these technological advancements are great and how they're going to save us energy. But why didn't it happen 5 years ago? Like, does anybody have an answer for me?
If I may, these 3 points that I mentioned earlier, the price, the range, and the choice of models, at least in the case of cars, weren't there. 5 years ago, we knew probably only Nissan Leaf. It could drive maybe 100 kilometers, and not even so much in Estonia. and it cost a lot. Yeah.
And from our point of view, we still see that the world isn't ready from the mobility transport provider's point of view. For our app to actually work, we need everything to be fully digital. So that means no travel cards, nothing physical. And all of these service providers, public transportation, private companies, they don't yet have the digital interface to which we could connect to. So we're still waiting for those to be opened up. Once they are there, we only going to see this mobility as a service industry going to move at a lot faster pace in the next 2 to 3 years. It's going to expand dramatically. Once the digital interfaces will open up, there will be competition, there will be a lot of players. The one that actually moves faster and can find or answer to the consumer specific needs, that's probably the one who's going to win.
So what is something that people don't agree with or what you do, but you want them to believe? Let's say that, I don't know, let's say you brought out in your presentation that once there was a lot of horses in the streets and no cars. I assume that when the cars were coming, there were some people saying that, well, we cannot use cars because they will explode or something like that. What is some like belief you're trying to change in a society?
To us, it's still, I would say that the car industry has done a remarkable job in the past 100 years to romanticize the ownership of the car. That freedom, like Apar showed the picture, the open highways concept that was developed in what's 40s in the US, that people still think that that is the only way that you can get that freedom. That's still deep in here. Mm-hmm. That's what we're trying to change now, that you actually don't need a car to be totally free. And there's a lot of less hassle when you don't actually own the car. You don't have to worry about the maintenance, the oil change, even the winter tire changes and everything like that. But it is still so deeply in the minds of people that to have actual freedom, I still need a car. Especially for the, let's say, people who are at my age or older, they think, they really think that way. But when you look at the youth, the kids that are now 18 to 20 years old, they don't even drive the driver's license anymore. So for them, it's relatively easy. But the mind shift has to happen. That's what we are fighting against.
Okay. So, Mr. Valsi, you're doing a lot in e-mobility. Is there, like, say, common belief you're trying to change in a society as well? Or people already love electric vehicles and that's...
I think there are maybe two things. One is actually very concentrated belief, and shortly put, this belief is car is not a power plant. Why is that important? It is actually that, like Jaako's colleague Apar said, that we only use car 4% of the time, 96% of the time we don't use. If we could use this car as a power plant, then we could, this car could earn the owner maybe 1,000 euros a year, meaning that these electric cars could come online much faster. In Germany, cars are considered power plants, and Germans already can use them to earn money. Number two is, of course, that people are a bit maybe hesitant in saying that, okay, let my car to use in energy market because how it affects, the battery. and we are trying to change that in a way that, many studies have shown that by using a car as a part of energy system, it actually does not affect the battery, or in some cases makes the battery even better. So this is our challenge.
I think one answer or problem to that is the reselling cost. So how long does the battery has a lifespan? How many times it can be charged? In people's mind, they haven't really seen it because the electric cars haven't been available for that many years yet. I'd say in a couple of years it will change, then people start to believe that yes, even though I would buy a used electric car that has been used for 3 years already and has been driven like 50, 70,000 kilometers, it still has life left. But people will really have to see that for themselves.
Actually, related to that, I was talking with Nissan on reusing these batteries, and what they said to us was that, sorry guys, the batteries outlive the cars.
We just have to get the consumers to accept it and understand it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's nice. Mr. Vihman, do you also have an answer for that? Like, is there an urban myth you're trying to break?
Definitely. I mean, there is a lot of criticism, maybe not so much in Estonia, but maybe in the southern Europe, about cruise tourism, and saying that they don't spend much money in the locations where they go to, and the whole cruise tourism is not being environmental friendly. And actually, this is not the truth. We actually made the survey last year in Estonia, and the average cruise tourist leaves about 80 euros per tourist into Estonian economy, which is more than 50 million euros annually. And we don't count then the salaries and, for example, for the bus driver or for the guide. This is not inside that money, so it's probably double of that. Secondly, cruise companies have for a long time already acknowledged that they have to be sustainable, otherwise they will be out of business very soon because people will start to block them. So they're doing a lot to be more environmental friendly. They're using environmental friendly fuels. Everything that they produce on a ship is recycled. There is a myth that they are dumping all the sewage water into the Baltic Sea, which is not the case for a very long time already. There is no economical reasons we take this water and recycle it for free. So this is something that we definitely want to change and explain it to the people.
I'm not fully satisfied because so far we've only agreed. So I would like to bring some energy and some discussion into this. Whoever has the answer to this. So basically, there is 2 ways to save energy. We just make a smarter system that just uses less energy, or we use cleaner energy. So which one of them would be most dominating for the future? Who has an answer for that?
Okay.
No comments?
Yeah, I can take if you like. So I think actually, continuing from this example in Estonia and having 15-year-old cars, these electric cars, for example, would in Estonia achieve 2 goals. Goal number 1, instead of very low efficiency cars, we would have new ones with much efficient motors. And number 2, I really believe that the main barrier why there is not more clean energy coming online is because we don't have batteries. So by having more electric vehicles, we have more batteries where to save this excess wind, excess solar, maybe not so much in Estonia, but in other countries. And by that we would have also more greener energy. So I think these are not contradictions, they are rather supplementing each other.
Okay.
I would definitely agree that we need both. So I'm sorry, no disagreement in there, because I really think that we need both. We can't force, especially us as a company, we can't force our customers to do something. They have to be willing to do that. Otherwise, they will decide with their wallet and skip the service and go somewhere else and stick with using their own cars. And that's not the way we want. But if we want to make the change faster, of course, then a government or a municipality can have tax-related, what's the real word, exemptions to actually make the change faster. By taxation or regulatory changes, the government and municipality can change and make this change a lot faster than any single company themselves can. So basically, I would say, yes, we need both, but we also need some regulatory changes to actually get people interested in changing their ways, how they are currently operating or moving about.
Yeah, I would not disagree.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, no, I think actually in case of e-mobility, I think this change will come from ourselves. And for two reasons, of course, people, at least they like to say they like green. Of course, when you make a study and ask, are you willing to pay more? They say no. But now coming to e-mobility, in a couple of years, it will be our own choice which will guide us through not the grants, but through our own pockets.
Yes, I agree. Like I said, deciding with the wallet, but taxes and governments can make the change faster. I agree in that sense that yes, in the future people will make more sustainable choices because I'd say in 10 years we don't have a choice. But taxes and government's actions can make the change faster. They can support it. Businesses themselves cannot really give the stick to the end user for not choosing the right sustainable mode, but governments and municipalities can. Although I'm a bit hesitant to speak of the regulatory issues because they sometimes tend to go too strict and it doesn't really leave enough room for companies to innovate. So I think even though losing the face of a startup in an event like this, I'd say that regulatory issues are needed if we want to make the change faster, but there still needs to leave room for innovations. And that's the most difficult part.
For Port of Tallinn, is also regulations holding back the innovation?
Not so much. Estonia generally is quite liberal country in that sense, but coming back to the earlier point, I also agree that the balance between the consuming the energy and at the same time being more efficient has to be found because the resources are limited, especially if we see at the cities. We are now starting real estate development in the Old Town Port. And we really invest into the most modern technology that there is into these buildings because really we cannot have enough energy and we really need to save that to get more invested into real estate.
Mm-hmm. And coming back to the previous topic, like going cleaner fuels versus smarter systems, seems like with ships we really cannot go, we cannot really just use electricity there only. So going smarter there is a big thing. I assume.
Not at the moment, but also gentleman here said that the technology is going very fast. So we are now the hip or the very fancy technologies, LNG. We have now the first ferry going between Helsinki and Tallinn that is fully powered by LNG and is bunkered in Port of Tallinn, the old town. In 2 years we will have a second one. In next year we will have the LNG bunkering ship from Estonian Gas Company. So this is something that is developing very fast now. I think the next stage could be the electric ships.
When will that happen?
Good question. I mean, we actually purchased 4 new ferries 2 or 3 years ago. And at that time, we couldn't use the battery systems because they were not existing. The last tests in Norway, they were made 1 year ago, and now it's ready for implementation. So that shows you how quickly this development can happen.
Yeah, I think there are 1 or 2 ferries operating on electricity in Finland between an island and the mainland. So
True. It has to be very short distance, absolutely.
And not very frequent, so that it would go all the way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I was just reading in the news saying that one scenario is that there will be 500,000 electric vehicles in Estonia by 2050. Who believes that? That would be 70% of all cars in Estonia. Which one of you gentlemen believes in that? That's just one scenario.
Without drastic actions, no. We have similar estimations for Finland as well, and without drastic measures, which I haven't seen, no.
What is drastic measures?
I would believe that it would require either some parts of taxation exemptions for electric cars. I know that the car taxation is not that high here in Estonia, whereas in Finland it's quite high. But the government and the municipality should support the change in some way to actually make it faster. I don't have the actual key or answer to what those measures should be, but they are the only ones who have the keys to actually make the change faster and support it. Usually money goes well, so that's the one way to make the change faster. I know all the electric cars, like you said, they are still relatively expensive, but the prices will go down. But still, if you look at how many new cars are being bought in a country at any given time, by just looking at that pace, it would take, 15 years old cars on average here? So even that means 15 years, if every single car would be fully electric starting today, it would mean that 15 years would be needed in order for all of them to change. And we know that's not going to happen today.
Do you also disagree, Mr. Vals?
Yeah, I would break down the questions into two. Number one is how to get those cars that are not actually used and which are old out of the registry. If that would be possible, then my answer would be yes, I would agree that 70% of the cars are electric, and the reason is actually cost. That in starting 2025, it's already reasonable to buy electric car to have a cheaper cost of monthly cost, basically. So this 500 euros in case of Finland would be 400 or maybe even 300, you know. But yeah, how to get the old cars out, then yes.
Okay, that makes sense. And
one answer, of course.
Before you answer, just to let you know that we'll be taking questions from the audience in a few seconds. So if you do have a question already, just raise your hands and our ladies will help you out with the microphone. But yes, please, how was your...
Of course, one way to actually make the change is if and when the cars will become autonomous, so that people wouldn't have to own the cars anymore. There will be a huge fleet operators that would control the cars, so that you just basically have a transportation on demand. That's one way to actually make the change faster, so that people wouldn't have to own the car, and I would just need, okay, I need access from here to the port, which actually you should walk, not use cars because it's so close, but you just call a car to actually pick you up and take you there. That's one way to actually make the change faster. If the cars are connected and autonomous, then you don't have to own it. But still, that doesn't solve you the question that how do you get to your summer cottage, which might be 80, 100 kilometers away from here in the middle of nowhere, as at least the situation is in Finland. You can't use public transportation to get there. Taxis are too expensive, so for that, you still need a car.
Yes. So let's talk about... wait, do we have questions from the audience so far? Or we can... All right, perfect. Right now we have silence.
It looks like in Finland.
Yes. Well, the good thing about the autonomous vehicles is that, you know, what Estonians like is that, you know, you can travel to one place to another and not talk to anybody, not the taxi driver, nobody. That's why McDonald's self-serving has been a hit in Estonia. Okay, so let's move on. For example, let's talk about smart city. Like, it is so vague term. How would, for example, Port of Tallinn contribute into this thing called the smart city?
Mr. Tuli earlier mentioned that we are sacrificing a lot of physical land or area for transportation. And actually, we have a solution for at least winning some of that back. We also have the video going around here very soon. It's called Smart Port, which actually is a traffic management system that we have developed together with Estonian IT pioneer Nortal. And we own the code. We would like to supply this also to other ports. And the idea is that it makes this movement of the vehicles much faster. So you don't have to spend so much time inside the port. You don't have to be too much early to check into the ship. And secondly, there is less traffic jams, and you get basically faster into the ship in the right order already. That captain wants you to be in there, and you don't need so much parking space also inside of the port. And this is pretty unique. We have, before we developed it about 4 or 5 years ago, we looked around that and we couldn't find any place that this kind of system would be running already.
All right, that sounds exciting indeed. But do you gentlemen also have an answer for that? Like, what a smart city, like how are your computer contributing to that?
No, our company has taken sort of a energy company perspective, and we tried to solve one pain point, which is, can you imagine when all these electric cars or other means of transportation start charging at the same time? It means that there would be actually a need for much stronger and much more expensive electricity network. But if those cars would start charging not at the same time, but at different times, then actually studies say that we would not need a stronger network, and we would need not to pay more for electricity network, but maybe even vice versa. So what we are actually trying to do, we are trying to get the electricity to the battery and then back from the battery to the electricity network where the need for electricity is the highest. And the result of that is actually two ways. So, of course, number one is wallet. We need to pay less for electricity. And number two, we can maybe even start making cars to earn money for their owners.
Mm-hmm. Good. So we are approaching the end marks here, but I would like to ask you all, like, is there a special message you would like to have, to express to this audience here? We have climate-aware people here. We have companies here who are extremely conscious about the environment. What kind of valuable information you can give them so they would improve their business or improve their lives? Does anybody have?
In my presentation, I was talking about the ecosystem approach that we are talking and preaching quite a lot about. In that sense, we are offering sort of an, let's say, easy way for our partners to acquire customers. And in that sense, we are also looking into building a sustainable future where commuting, for example, would be done with the public transportation quite often. And then when you have different needs of traveling, then you would use them only when you need them. So if you are actually in the transport mobility or transportation business, then definitely keep in mind the open ecosystem, that you won't be putting all your eggs in one basket. So then the future would be open and not siloed, because then we believe that that is not the way of the future.
I have maybe two ideas. Number one is, of course, I'm a strong believer of acting yourself. So, like you said, all the people today here are probably very much green-oriented. So my suggestion is to really think, if you purchase your next car, whether it's ICE vehicle or electric vehicle. And number two, of course, to see how this vehicle can help to make your life every day greener. Visit our booth. You can have their pancakes, which are made from the electricity from electric car battery.
I would agree to this, that you have to act yourself. So think smart, be green. And if you are a business owner or a business manager, then don't underestimate the environmental issues or sustainability issues, because frankly, if you are a public company or at least a bigger company, then most probably you will be out of business if you don't address these things probably inside 5 to 10 years.
All right, thanks for this closing remarks. So just to wrap up this session here, we'll be finishing in just a few minutes here. I would like to summarize a little bit what we heard today. For example, Mr. Jarkko Jaakola, he talked about autonomous driving, how it will change how we think, how mobility as a service works, how people really don't need to own their vehicles. So, Mr. Margus Vals here, thank you very much for explaining about how electric vehicles can be really valuable part of the electrical grid system, and how to make electric vehicles accessible, really. And Mr. Margus Vihman talked about the port perspective of how the Port of Tallinn, my home port, likes to be one of the most innovative ports here, and make the journey to, let's say, Helsinki much more convenient. So this is all from us. Luis, take it away.
Please, round of applause for the gentlemen on the panel. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Margus, and Jarkko. Thank you. Sir. Thank you. Thank you.